Welcome to the video pro guys, my name is Mark and today I will take a look at one of the most useful and underrated filter for matte box, which is, in my opinion, a polarizer. Alright, so there's actually two types of polarizer, the linear and the circular. The circular is mostly used with digital cameras since it helps with the autofocus function, but in the end both filters will achieve pretty much the same thing, which is to cut light reflections. So once you have your matte box, you can actually control a bit more of the light entering your camera, but eventually you will need filters to do a better job. With all the filters available on the market, where should you begin with? ND filters are great because they actually cut a specific amount of light depending on their values. This can be quite ND, but depending on how much light you need to cut, you will need different ND values. The Canon C100 I'm using right now has built-in ND filters. They are quite ND, but what if your camera doesn't have built-in ND filters? So for basic light filtration, I would recommend starting out with only two filters, two polarizer, the linear and the circular one. So why these two filters? Well, a polarizer actually cuts one up to 2 stops of light by the simple use of it, so it already helps with light filtration. Then when you actually rotate the filter, it actually cuts light reflection, which is basically its main function. So when you actually stack two filters, the linear and the circular one, you will achieve what's basically called a variable ND filter. This can actually come quite ND since you're using only two filters and you can cut as much light as there is. So even if you don't have a lot of ND filters, you can actually control pretty much the light in every situation with these two filters. This is not going to be as precise as using specific values of ND filters, but it will do the trick on the cheap. So to start with, this is pretty much the setup that I would recommend. So let's start and see what these filters can do in real life. Alright, so let's start. So by dropping the filter in the matte box, you actually reduce a bit of the light coming through. And when we actually rotate the filter, look at all this portion of the floor. It's slowly fading out, so it helps by cutting the reflection on the ground. As I mentioned earlier, we cut 1 up to 2 stops of light, so check all the overexposed portion in the window. It's basically gone. You actually cut a lot of the reflection on the furniture, but there's still a bit of reflection on the floor. When we actually rotate the filter, we introduce reflection on the furniture and cut the reflection on the ground. So it's not good for pretty much any situation. You can find an in-between like this, or you can actually cut all the reflection from one or the other side, but not both at the same time. So the circular polarizer, its main function when we rotate the filter is actually to cut light reflection. By doing such, it actually increases the contrast between the sky and the clouds, which is pretty cool. Depending on what you need in the shot, this can come quite handy. Then the linear polarizer, it's basically pretty much the same thing. You can actually see it in the sky. It does pretty much the same thing, cutting light reflections. So here's the circular polarizer and the linear polarizer. So both filters do the same. What if you actually place the circular behind the linear? It becomes a variable ND filter. If you reverse the order, then you can get a white balance shifter. So if you want to achieve in-camera effects, this can be quite handy. So the scene is properly exposed with the built-in ND filters from the Canon C100. So if we actually remove it, the scene gets badly overexposed. But by using this trick that gives us a variable ND filter, you can actually properly expose your scene by rotating the filter and cutting as much light as there is. So the image is overexposed, we bring back the 4 stops of ND filters on the C100. Still, we can actually rotate the filters and control the light entering the camera. A badly overexposed image, now in full screen, and by rotating the filter, you can actually control how much light is entering your camera. So this trick on the cheap can be quite handy because you can actually cut pretty much all the light entering your camera without built-in ND filter. Alright, so if we actually reverse the order, if we actually put the linear polarizer in the fixed tray, and we put the circular polarizer in the rotatable tray, which is behind the linear polarizer, And if we actually rotate the circular one, we get that white balance shifter. So if you want to achieve in-camera effect, shifting the white balance from a warmer to colder look, here's what it looks like. You start with a probably white balance image. So we can start with a colder look and bring it back to a warmer look, achieving a white balance shift directly in camera without additional post-production tricks. Now take a look at this, a nice shot, but lots of reflection in the glass. If you need them, fine, but if you don't, you can use a polarizer to get rid of pretty much 80% of the reflection and see through the window. Take a look at the car, a lot better with pretty much all the reflection in the front windshield cut out. But depending on which angle you actually cut the light, there is no light reflection in the windshield. We cut from the side of the car, introducing it on the top. But if we rotate it back, we introduce reflection on the top of the car or vice versa. Now take a look at this shot. It's a lot better without all the reflection in the windshield. We can actually see through the glass. Here's a more extreme example. Take a look at all this portion of the screen is overexposed, and with the polarizer we can actually cut all the reflection and see through the windshield. See how badly this shot is overexposed without the use of a polarizer? This can actually save the shot. Even on top of the car, we cut pretty much all the reflection. See in the sky how much we can actually cut the reflection from the sky. The clouds actually pop out of the sky. It increases the contrast, so the sky is bluer, the clouds are actually a bit more white. They pop out of the screen. It's actually a bit more evident here. Another shot with reflection in the window. If you don't need them, rotate the polarizer, cut like 80% of the reflection. Personally, I think it's better without the reflection. Not a good example. Look at all the reflection in the window and see in front of the building all the reflection being cut out. The red portion here actually pops out of the screen. So it's not only for the window, you can see how much in front of the building you cut light reflection, and the red portion here pops out of the screen. Take a look here, all the reflection in water, rotate the filters, we cut 80% of the reflection, we see through the water, pretty much the same on the river here. We cut pretty much all the reflection from the top of the water. Pretty much the same thing here. Look at the wet spot on the ground, creating highlights. We cut them. Look at all the reflection in the water. All that portion here, which is pretty much overexposed. We rotate the filter, we see through the water, and take a look at all the details here that we are bringing back from a badly overexposed shot. As I mentioned, the polarizer is probably the most underrated filter that you can get for your matte box. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If so, feel free to like the video, leave a comment in the section below, and see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for watching.